Welcome to Speaking of Grace, the weekly message podcast from the Whole Life Church in Orlando, Florida. We're a multi-ethnic, multicultural, and multi-generational congregation committed to our mission of loving people into a lifelong friendship with God. We are committed to our vision of being a church without walls, fully engaged in serving the people of our community. Thank you for joining us as we continue Speaking of Grace.
All right, let's get to work. How'd that make you feel? Like, how many of you get to work? No, that doesn't, okay, so how many of you had positive feelings when you heard that? Raise your hand. Positive feelings when you heard get to work. Okay, there are a couple of you. How many of you had negative feelings when you heard get to work? How many of you are afraid I'm going to do something weird with you if you raise your hand? Yes, okay, that's fair. I get it. I'm with you. I mean, you're not necessarily wrong. In this case, you are wrong. I'm not going to, but in other times it's happened, so I understand where you're coming from. Get to work. Man, boy, when I hear those words, I feel like I'm back on top of a hot roof in North Carolina doing roofing. About 16, 17 years of age. Worked in construction for 2 summers, not because I enjoyed it, but I did like the money. And I needed to work my way through school. So it was those 2 summers that convinced me that a college education was very, very important to me. And there's nothing wrong. Let me just say, for those of you who love roofing and that's your profession, I am so grateful for you. I cannot begin to tell you how grateful I am. And can we also just agree that we're all gifted with different abilities and different things that bring us joy when we do them. And but when I hear get to work, that's what I think of. I think about my boss, because I may or may not have been the best construction employee ever because I did not enjoy what I was doing. And so get to work. That's kind of what comes to my mind. And honestly, for me, it's not positive feelings when I hear those words. But I felt like we needed to talk about it because we've just spent a whole lot of time over the last 4 weeks talking about playing. So we need to get to work now, right? I mean, we've done enough play. Let's get to work. Let's get this done. So if you weren't here for the last month or so, we've taken 4 weeks to talk about play. And now that school's starting, get to work. Get to work. Let's get to work. And I have to tell you, I don't think I'm the only person who hears the word work and doesn't necessarily get the most positive feeling all the time. I looked up the synonyms for work. May I read them to you? Synonyms: labor, toil, exertion, effort, and my personal favorite, slog. These are the synonyms that I found when I went on the dictionary and looked for synonyms. I mean, not exactly the most positive words, right? But hey, get to work. All right? I'm looking at you, Anderling. I heard her talking back to me. I'm just picking on her because I can. We appreciate Anderling. She's amazing. All right. So how about you? How do you define work? You don't have to shout it out, but if I were to ask you to define the word work, how would you define it? Because by the time that we're done today, I'm hoping that unless you have the same definition that I have, that you're going to have a shift. Especially if you view work with those words, those synonyms I just threw out there. I'm hoping maybe we'll have a little bit of a shift as we talk about get to work and specifically talk about work as worship. Now, for some of you, no, wait, I come to church to worship, and I go to work to make a paycheck. So let's not, mix the profane with the holy. And when you say work is worship, that's profane work. Worship, holy, can know the difference. And I want to suggest to you that I hope that by the end of today, you'll know that there is not a difference. That work is worship. What's the worst job you've ever had? You don't need to tell me, but you just tell me if you can beat me. I've had some bad jobs through the years because I started working very young. I don't think there were labor laws back then or something. And the one that sticks out to me was my freshman year of high school. It was actually between 8th grade and high school, and I was the guy that washed the bottles that your mushrooms are grown in. Now, if you don't know how mushrooms are grown, you may want to plug your ears if you like them, because they are grown in these plastic cylinders that are filled with sawdust and manure. And then the mushroom spores put in it, and it grows in darkness. It's harvested. Then they take the cylinder apart. They knock as much of that stuff out as they can. They threw it in bags, and I got the bags that I would then dump into a vat of boiling water. And for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, I would be, and if you think the smell was bad, I just got a whiff of it right now. Yeah. The sermon is done. Yeah, it was awful. And there's a spinning fuller's brush. You would clean these things out, put them into a new bag, send it back, and it was just this repeating cycle. It was horrendous. And again, like that other job that I didn't enjoy, is like reasons to do something else, to figure out a different course in life for myself. And I think that a lot of times when we hear the word work, we go to those negative imagery that we have of work. We often don't focus on like the happy work, because why? Well, because we believe Mark Twain and Confucius, right? Both of them, these people have been quoted as saying, find a job you love and you'll never have to work a day in your life. Right? And so that's what I believed when I was in that mushroom factory. I got to find a job I love, because I've been working 8 hours, and it felt like 10 hours a day. And by the way, when they ran out of mushroom bottles, they were doing a little renovation project that they pulled tile off the board, and they literally gave us these little razors that we had to get the glue off of this huge floor. And I'm telling you, that is not the way that's supposed to be done. But when you're paying somebody $4.25 an hour, take the time you need. Just cheaper than anything else we're going to be doing. So yeah, I was like, dude, I have to find a job I love, because I don't want to work. I don't want to work a day. Now, I have to tell you, 49 years old, I've had a couple jobs. I've had jobs I love, had jobs not as much. And I have yet to find a job that I haven't had to work. I came to whole life hoping. And so I say to Mark Twain and Confucius, you guys aren't as smart as you think you are. In fact, is it possible for smart people to say things that are incorrect? And I have a problem with this quote. I have a big problem with it. I have two problems with it specifically. The first thing is, like I said, I've had jobs that I absolutely loved, and I know I went to work every day. Because can we just say there are jobs that you love that are painful, that require effort, and that you don't enjoy every aspect of everything that you do? Yeah, for those of us who have been I love being a manager. I love that. I love leading. You know what I don't like? I don't like telling people how they need to do better. I don't like firing people. Don't enjoy that. It'll put my, the idea of having to let somebody go will put my stomach into knots. It's a work day. Part of the job, not what I like. And so the first part that I don't like about this quote that you hear thrown out all the time is that, and young people really hear me, especially those of you who aren't working yet, don't buy this. Anything worth doing is going to require effort, and you're going to have to work. There will be days that you don't want to go in, and you will have to show up if you want to get the job done, period. You will work. Now, the second part of what I don't like about this quote is that it makes the word work a negative word, as if work is a bad thing. Work is not a bad thing. And that is one of the other things I've discovered over the last 49 years of my life, that work is actually something different. Work is a blessing. Work is a gift. Work is necessary. And I would say to you right now that the science supports me on that. The science supports me. I triple dare you to go home and find me science that doesn't back up what I just said. Because I researched pretty extensively for this. And I'm only going to quote you one study that I came across because the guy he'd done a big survey of other studies. And this guy, he's Italian, his last name is Bertazzi. And his work that was, scientifically peer-reviewed, MedLab is the publication, scientific stuff. Anyway, the way that his title is translated, I want you to hear it, of this paper is Work as a Basic. What word did I just use? Basic. Work as a human need. Work as a basic human need and health promoting factor. That's the title of his paper, because all scientific papers have long titles. And Bertazzi makes the point that in his studies, is what he's come across, is that he learns that a lack of occupation, a lack of work, leads to physical and mental health decline. Because work is a human need. Not a human want, not a human that would be nice, not a human I don't want to do it, a basic human need. It's a basic human need. And what his study showed is that across the different studies that he surveyed, a lack of work has been shown to cause increases in anxiety and depression. And you say, of course, Ken, when I don't get a paycheck, I feel a lot of anxiety. I have a mortgage, I have to pay rent, I'd like to eat. It might be nice to go out with that person I like to spend time with. So of course I feel anxiety. You don't need to do a scientific study to steer it. You know what they found though? Even if you have all those things covered, if you do not have work, if you're not worried about where you're going to live, if you're not worried about feeding yourself, you will still have an increased likelihood of suffering from depression and anxiety if you do not have work. Just think about it. Think about the people that you know that have retired without a plan. They're covered. They've got a pension. They're fine. Am I the only person who knows people who die a month or two after they retire? And you're like, they were perfectly fine before. Now, I know people that have retired and they live a long time after retirement. And most of the people that I know that do that have a meaningful purpose. They have other work that they do. Now, they get to kind of pick how they want to do it, and that's nice. But they still have meaningful things that they're pursuing and that they're doing. They have work that they're doing. So Bertazzi also says that this is another important thing. So it's not just the mental health aspect of things, of not working. It's also, he found that death rate among the unemployed increased, not only due to violence, but also cardiovascular disease and cancer. So you can go ahead and set the paycheck off on the side. What's been found in these studies, scientists, go look this up for yourself, is that people who don't have work have an increased likelihood of cancer and heart disease. Because work is a basic human need. I wonder why that is. Well, as a pastor, I have some answers from the Bible that I think explain it. Where do we see the first example of work? Garden of Eden. You guys are so smart. I have people that tell me, it's Genesis 3. God curses them with work. Right? By the sweat of your brow. But family, that's not. Read the curse. The curse isn't work. It's that work becomes more difficult. And we'll talk about why that is here in a minute. But the first example of work is actually in Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning, God created, work. In the beginning, God created the heavens, the earth, and all that in them is. So the first being that we see working is not humans, it's God. Right from the beginning, God is at work. For in 6 days, the Lord created the heavens and the earth and all that in them is. Genesis 1 lays it all out. And what does Genesis 1 also say? It says, now the earth was formless and void, and darkness covered the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God hovered over the waters. And God said, let there be light. Now, what I really want to do is backtrack a little bit to that formless and void. If you really want to take the Hebrew word that's being used there, I'd like to give you Ken's translation of it, and I think that it's very well supported by people who are much better Hebrew scholars than I am. I think a better way of translating it in the world that we live in is to say, now the earth was in chaos. The earth was in chaos. There's water, but there's no structure to it. Apparently, there must have been dry land that God brings up out of the water. But it's all in chaos. Nothing's living. Nothing's happening. And what does God do over the course of 6 days? He brings order out of chaos. He brings order out of chaos. The work that God does is God brings order out of, take your left hand. I'm just waiting for everybody, just so you know. I'm kidding. Take the word order, put it in your hand, hold it for a second, okay? I got in trouble. I did this first service and I forgot to come back at the end and tell people. I had somebody walk out and go, my hand's still closed. So if I start to forget to let you open your hand, you guys just yell out at me, okay? It's okay to talk back to me. I'm forgetful. I can forget stuff. You're holding order in your hand, okay? You can put it on your lap. You can relax your hand. It doesn't need to be a tight fist. Just put it there. But we're going to come back to that in just a second, okay? So God creates the heavens and the earth. And then on the sixth day, God says, let us make man in our, what does that mean? Likeness. Just looks? Character. You know, my son Eric, who's at college, he's in my likeness. I recognize him when I see him in college in the way he's going about it. He looks a little bit like me, but man, he's doing college pretty much the way I did it. He's having a good time. And he's super excited about his first class, and we're hoping he hangs on to that. In my image, but God said, let us make humanity in our image, not simply the way we look, but the way that we are. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, over the cattle, over all the earth, and over all the creeping things that creeps on the earth. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female, he created them. Then God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves on the earth. I want to talk to you about this word dominion. It's not a popular word out in the world right now, especially the way that Christians wind up using it. I remember I was blessed to sit next to an actress when I was younger when I was on a cross-country flight between Charlotte and LA. And she said, I ordered a vegetarian meal. And she goes, oh, are you an environmental activist like me? And I said, no, I'm a Seventh-day Adventist. And her nose wrinkled up. But it wasn't because I was a Seventh-day Adventist, it was because I was a Christian. And she said, oh, I don't particularly care for Christians. I said, tell me about that. What do we do to you? And she said, well, you guys don't care about the environment. And I said, well, why don't we care about the environment? And she said, because you have dominion over the earth, I've been told by you people. You have dominion, which means that you can thrash this earth any which way you want because you're in charge. You're the rulers. So I said, now is a great time to have a Bible study. She didn't look enthusiastic immediately, but let me tell you, she got really excited when I opened up my Bible and started to explain to her what the word dominion means. Dominion really means caretakership. That's what it really means. Let me go ahead and prove it to you. Ezekiel chapter 34, verse 4. Hang on for a minute with me here. The weak you have not strengthened, nor have you healed those who are sick, nor bound up the broken, nor brought back what was driven away, nor sought what was lost, but with force and cruelty you have ruled them. And that word ruled is the exact same word that I just quoted to you as dominion back in Genesis. It's the exact same Hebrew word that's being used there. And so what I want you to think about is what God thinks about people who rule with force and cruelty. People, those who have dominion where the weak are not strengthened, where they don't strengthen the weak, where they don't heal those who are sick, who are bound up and broken. See, God doesn't like that. That's not the kind of dominion that God had in mind for humanity. Rather, it was this kind of dominion that God had in mind. The Lord placed the man in the Garden of Eden to tend and watch over it. In other words, God gave humanity a work to do, a work of maintaining the order that he had brought out of chaos. And I find that super fascinating that God could make everything perfectly, and yet he gave us an assignment to keep the order. And we immediately went and fouled that up and created chaos. And so take that hand, that left hand that you put order in, now open it up and look at that word and recognize that when I define work, when Ken defines work this way, and I believe it is the biblical way. True work is bringing order out of chaos. True work is maintaining order and not allowing chaos to take back over. And so you hold in your left hand God's work for you. And I don't care whether you're an accountant bringing order out of the numbers, or you're a teacher bringing order out of young minds, or whether you are the local sanitation officer who keeps my town from being overridden with trash and waste, or whether you're the fireman who goes and saves people who would be incinerated if you weren't there to help them. You are bringing order out of chaos because that's God's work. God's work is always bringing order out of chaos. That is legitimate, God-filled work. Illegitimate work is bringing chaos out of order. And that's what Adam and Eve did when they disobeyed God at the tree of the Garden of Eden. They brought chaos into this world. And when God says, I'm cursing you with these things, what he's really saying is, this is what you've chosen for yourself. This is a curse. What you've done creates these things. It creates chaos. Look at all the things that God lists out as the curse. These are things that are chaos. We gave those to ourselves. And God's came, when Jesus comes to earth, he comes to bring order back to the chaos that we created. And what do we see Jesus doing with his ministry? Well, he's feeding 5,000 people. People are hungry, bringing order to hungry stomachs. We see him bringing order back to those who have been debilitated in ways that God never intended for that to have to be that way. We see him bringing calm to a storm on a lake, order out of chaos. Be a part of God's work. Bring order out of chaos. I want to suggest to you that the biggest honor that I ever am given is when somebody says, I want to work with you. Like, seriously, is somebody who employs people occasionally, like, the biggest honor is when somebody actually approaches you and go, hey, is there any chance there might be, I would love to be a part of what you're doing. I want to suggest to you that is the concept of worshiping God is saying, I want to be a part of what you're doing. Like the biggest compliment the biggest way you can say, I love you, God, the biggest kind of worship is to say, I want to be a part of what you're doing. And if you're bringing order out of chaos, I want to be a part of that too. I want to be that person. I want to take my job, the vocation that you've gifted me, the thing that I'm doing as work, whether it's cleaning my house or cleaning up the neighborhood or doing the vocation, I want to do that job the way that you do it, which is to bring order out of chaos. I want to maintain order. I want to increase efficiency and order. I want to do. That is, to me, the ultimate act of worship. We kind of tend to sit back and think, well, worship is singing nice songs to God. Let me tell you, that's an act of worship, but I think one of the greatest acts of worship is actually working for God. And it's not restricted to people who get a paycheck from a denomination. Working for God can be any kind of job that is bringing order out of chaos and not creating chaos. And there are jobs that create chaos. Think carefully before you take those on. But any job that brings order of chaos, legitimate. And it is an act of worship. That means work is a form of worshiping God. It's being a part of what God's doing and giving God honor and glory by saying, hey, what you do matters, and I want to be a part of that. I want to tell you, I want to actually show you some of our family members here at Whole Life who have taken that approach to their business. I want to show you their story and show you how they are using the business that God has given them and using it as work, as an act of worship. Check out Arnaldo and Jeanette.
We started in 2007 with just a dream and an idea. At the core of what we really do is continue to build culture and leaders, and then we do facility maintenance. That's the gateway on how we achieve that, and janitorial services for different venues around the state. When it came to naming our company, we looked at different names, but the one that was continuously at the forefront of the conversation was, how do we remember who we really serve? And so King Service Solutions is about serving the King of Kings and having that representation in the marketplace. Well, we believe that work is worship. And everything that we do is to continue to build leaders. And so personal development for us outweighs the profit. And so we want to make sure that everything that we do is life-giving. So at King Service Solutions, we have a chaplain on staff as part of the benefits to our team members. That's so important to us because we want to make sure that people feel encouraged, empowered, and valued for who they are, and that they can find their identity in the marketplace and in our organization. Our company has recently been recognized by the SBA as the Small Business of the North Region, and then also the 2024 Entrepreneur of the Year. Over 33 million small businesses were looked at, and we were selected. The support that Whole Life has shown us has been an amazing part of our journey. We've been able to be educated on the Word of God. One of our favorite pieces is that last thing that Pastor Ken says, family, I love you, and go love your world. And so it's that reminder to be able to be present for our community.
Did you hear Jeanette say that she put people before profit? I think one of the things that stood out to me when I did the interview with Jeanette is that during COVID, they did not lay off a single person. They actually added people to their team. They made a commitment to their people to make sure that they kept them employed, and they did the hard thing. They did the hard thing. And God not only honored that, he blessed them through it, that they were actually to add to their business during that time period. And they have done incredible things, and God is doing incredible things through them because they view their business as an act of worship. And so it's not surprising to me that when that happens, the world starts noticing that there's something different. And that's exactly what happened when Small Business Administration recognized their business. the way that they did. They got to fly to Washington, D.C., only one of, I think, 5 different small businesses across the whole United States that were honored as the top small businesses in the country. Yeah. And I would actually like to, they worship with us here most weeks. I know I'm going to embarrass you a little bit, but Arnaldo and Jeanette, would you just stand up? And we'd just like to thank you for showing us and reminding us. Thank you so much. And I don't use them as an example because I think they're the only ones here doing it. I use them to inspire all of us, because I know so many of you are doing that already. I know so many of you, whether you're working in a restaurant serving tables, or whether you are the CEO of a company, or wherever you are, that you're using your work as a way of worshiping God and saying, I want to join you in going into a world where there is chaos. And when that customer comes in who's all bent out of shape and having a bad day, I help bring order into their day by loving them and by caring about them. So I close by asking you this, family, how does your work give glory to God?
Hi, this is Randy McGray, podcast producer and host here at Whole Life Church. Loving people into a lifelong friendship with God is our mission at the Whole Life Church, and our podcasts are designed to help facilitate conversations that help us grow together in that pursuit. Now that you've heard the message for this week, don't forget to check out the Whole Life takeaways for this message. Swipe up in today's show notes and join the conversation. Speaking of conversations, each Wednesday morning we take a closer look at the week's message. That's right, the one you just listened to. We discuss practical ways to apply spiritual lessons and ask honest questions about the issues we face as Christians, all focused through the lens of grace. Your voice is a welcomed addition to that conversation. We encourage your thoughts and your questions by sending a voicemail or text to 407-965-1607 or send an email to podcast@wholelife.church. You can find everything podcast related on our website, wholelife.church/podcast. And plan on spending every Tuesday evening and Wednesday morning with us as we bring you the Whole Life Church inspiration you love straight into your headphones. Thanks for listening, and have a great week.